From Time Warner Cable Field at Fox City Stadium here in Grand Chute, Wisconsin, I'm Pat Coleman, joined by Jim Dixon for our recap of Day 1 of the 2013 Division III Baseball Championships here on D3Baseball.com. And it was a day in which we had 3 fantastic games, and we ended with a clunker. And we'll have to talk about all 4 of them, but we'll probably talk about some of the more interesting ones before we talk about that Kane-Webster game that dragged on and on and on and on into the night. But some of the great games that took place on this Friday, the first game and the first day of the 2013 Division III Baseball Championships. Got to start with the game that, you start with the extra inning game or the other extra inning game or the game that came down to the wire. We got to start with the walk-off, and that's when freshman Brighton Guttenberg of Wisconsin Stevens Point came up in the bottom half of the 10th inning and went deep off Bryce Murphy to give Stevens Point a 6-5 win against Manchester. And Jim, first of all, a big spot for the freshman.
It really is. And this is only his 3rd home run of the season and his first walk-off since coming out of high school. And so he was really happy. When I saw him in the press room, he still had the vestiges of the shaving cream on his face. So he was a really happy guy.
He's a guy who came to Wisconsin Stevens Point from Montana. You think about the kind of student body that a state school usually attracts. There's the guys who are right around campus within a few hours, or at least somebody who qualifies for in-state tuition. For a kid to come, a multiple more than 20-hour drive from Montana to come to Central Wisconsin, that's a pretty interesting move.
Well, he's a natural resources major, and he has a program that works very well for him at Stevens Point. Not a lot of baseball in Montana, and he has an uncle who sits here in Wisconsin. So it really was a perfect fit for him. And he sent some video to the coach, and the coach said, come on over. And, a 25-hour bus or train ride, he's here in Stevens Point hitting walk-off home runs.
Throw a hashtag YD3 on that one. On the, he hit the home run off of Bryce Murphy. This is a guy who, there's a lot of discussion about him and about the choices for All-American team at the utility spot. And for the first 7 innings, Bryce Murphy was having a fantastic game. He was 3 for his first 4, scored a run. Then he came into pitch. The Stevens Point scored 6 runs in the last 3 innings. 4 of them charged to Murphy. Murphy goes 0 for his last 2, and it's really kind of a tale of 2 games for him.
Yes, he hit very well in the beginning of the game, and when it came down to the end, he was pitching well too. And when you ask his players who were playing with him, he says, when we were in that 10th inning and we had the bases loaded with 2 outs, we needed to come through, and we weren't able to come through. And the players still have the confidence in Bryce Murphy to sit there and come back tomorrow and pitch fantastically.
That's right. Yeah, Manchester had the bases loaded in the top half of the 10th inning and was unable to score. As I mentioned, Manchester entered the bottom of the 8th inning with a 5-0 lead, and then Wisconsin Stevens Point scores 3 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th, and then the 1 in the 10th off the walk-off home run for the win. For the first 6 innings or so of this game, Jim, everybody was talking about all the base runners for Manchester, and Stevens Point really for the first 5 or 6 innings almost couldn't buy a hit.
They really couldn't, but Stevens Point has been here before. Mm-hmm. They're sort of developing a talent of sitting there, starting slow and coming on strong. And they've been in this position before, so they knew how to take care of it and knew how to come and react to the situation. And they say the triple is the most exciting hit in baseball, but we got 2 triples and a walk-off home run in the last 3 innings. So I have to say that the Pointers really did put a charge into the game today.
For Manchester, their first trip to the Division III Championships since 2004, and they fall to Stevens Point by the score of 6-5. Another great game was our second game of the day between the top-ranked Linfield and another top 10 team in Ithaca as well. This is another game in which, you look at the bottom half of that score line in innings 7, 8, and 9. Looks very similar to what Stevens Point did, and Ithaca almost pulled it off. They trailed 7-0 at the 7th inning stretch. They scored 2 in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, and 1 in the 9th. They end up falling 8-6. But I want to talk about the home run, the disputed home run in the top half of the 8th. Tim Wilson hits a ball down the right field line. We see clearly on replay that the ball is foul because the shadow is on the outer half of the fair pole, so meaning it's gone to the right-hand side of the right field foul line. Foul ball, just if you're not following my mental geography, if that's not working for you. And right fielder for Ithaca, Christian Brown is just hopping mad when that ball goes out. And really the fact that it's a 2-run game in the ninth inning instead of a 1-run game really changes the complexion of how that inning could be played.
It really does, and it really does limit what Ithaca was able to do in that final inning. And when you look at their final out, it was a diving catch by a Linfield outfielder, and if that ball sinks, Linfield comes away with the victory. So it was that close for Linfield to see a loss today.
That rally by Ithaca off of the Linfield bullpen kind of overshadows a pretty good start by Chris Hadeland. He goes the first 7 innings, allows 8, doesn't walk anybody, strikes out 5, gave up 2 runs, and probably you have to think if Scott Brochus wanted, he could have brought him back out for an 8th inning, but Hadeland is a guy who threw a ton of innings in the regionals.
It's really good to give him some rest, and I think if you talk to Scott Brochus, maybe you think he might want to have him in for just one more inning because he was being effective. He was starting to tire, so it made sense to get into some relief, particularly because you had the cushion to play with.
Hadeland with the win, he improves to 14-1. Pat Lemo goes 5 innings, gives up 9 hits, 5 runs all earned to take the loss, just his second of the season. Joseph Stevick comes in and gets the save in the 9th inning, his second of the season. We started the day with a great game as well, a game between Southern Maine and Millsaps. And, you kind of touched on it in a lot of cases. When you've got number 1 starter against number 1 starter, the pitching is really dominant in the early days of the tournament. But in this case, not really Southern Maine's number 1 starter. It's a freshman. Schuyler Skates comes out, makes a start, goes the first 5, gives up 1 run, and then 5 innings of scoreless relief from Andrew Richards.
When you look at what Southern Maine has brought to the contest, they have a lot of starting freshmen. They got great senior leadership, but it's the freshmen that are sitting there putting some spark. And when you talk to the coach says his pitching staff has exceeded all expectations this year. And one of the reasons is some of the newcomers coming in for pitch for the Huskies.
On the other side, Will Edwards with probably the individual pitching performance of the day.
You have to say that.
He did. He actually made me say it.
He came into a situation where in the 10th inning, the first baseman fields the ball, throws it to second, and inadvertently hits Will in the head. So if Edwards isn't there, they probably get the runner at second base, and we're probably still playing. It certainly was a heck of a game for Edwards.
It sure was. Edward goes the first 9, started the 10th inning. He gave up 5 hits, 2 runs, only 1 of them earned. He was charged with the loss, walked 1, struck out 7. Let's see if I get this correct. So Jake Glauser, who pinch hit, walked, then moved to second on that throw that hit Edwards in the temple, came around to score the winning run in the 10th.
That's right. And once they had an opportunity to sacrifice again, so once they got him in third base, it was just easy to get him home on the sacrifice fly.
And Andrew Richards, who came in and pitched that 5 innings of relief. Remember, he's the guy who won 2 games in the regionals on the same day on that Saturday when Southern Maine was playing its way out of the losers bracket to get back and face Endicott and win on Sunday. So the final score there, Southern Maine defeats Millsaps 2-1 in 10 innings. And we'll just briefly touch on the 4th game of the day between Kane and Webster. Kane wins this one 14-8 in a game that Neil Oliverio, if nothing else, I can't count the number of times that the word sloppy was mentioned in that post-game news conference.
This certainly was un-Kane-like when you talk to performance and when you talk to the Webster coach, too. It really wasn't the game that Webster wants to play. And I don't know if the Kane head coach was able to sit there and see the games before, but when he had a chance to add runs, he kept adding them. Because, once again, we learned sometimes a big lead is no longer safe here at Grand Chutes, Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Division III championships. There's a lot of great offenses here. Kane scored 6 in the 6th inning to kind of bust it open. It was a 3-3 game at that point. Kane goes out to a 9-3 lead. They add 1 in the 7th to make it 10-3, add 1 in the 8th. Then Webster comes back with a pair in the bottom of the 8th. And Kane comes back out in the top of the 9th inning and puts 3 more on the board to make it 14-5. And they needed them because it was a long bottom half of the 9th inning in which Webster scored 3 and left the bases full, I believe.
And you got to really be happy if you're a Gorlock, because this shows that a Webster team is not going to quit. And I don't know if I would want to be Manchester, sit there and play a game that plays a short game just as well as the Webster is playing it.
Kevin Herget with the win for the Cougars. He improves to 10-2, 8 innings pitched, 5 hits, 5 runs, only 2 of them earned as Kane committed 3 errors. So our matchups for day 2, we start with the losers bracket games at 10 a.m. Central Time. Millsaps takes on Ithaca, followed by Webster against Manchester. The winners bracket games starting with a scheduled 4:30 first pitch between Linfield and Southern Maine, and then Stevens Point and Kane in the nightcap of the night. Jim, kind of just real briefly about those day 2 games. First of all, Linfield Southern Maine looks like a great matchup in the winners bracket. Stevens Point against Kane. Obviously, Kane's got to come back and play. Not a little more tight necessarily, but a little more under control, a little less loose, as it were.
I think we're going to see Kane come back and start playing the game that they play. One of the challenges they're going to face is they're going to be coming into a stadium that is going to be packed with Pointer fans. As we've seen, the last game doesn't start on time, so the fans here will be here for a while, and we'll expect to see large crowds for that great matchup between Linfield and Southern Maine.
And those morning elimination games between Millsaps and Ithaca, Webster and Manchester. Out of this group, I mean, obviously, you would think Ithaca, based on what they've done over the course of the regular season, will probably be favored against Millsaps, and Manchester may be favored against Webster, but 2 real toss-up games, and especially in the losers bracket, in your 0-1, you don't want to go, you don't want to go 2 and out. Expect to see a lot of stops being pulled out in those games.
And I think we're going to see that all 4 of those teams facing elimination still have a great second pitcher coming up. So I think we're still going to see great games, and they know it's do or die. And this is one of the most competitive fields that I've seen. So when you look from top to bottom, anybody can beat anybody on any day.
Stay tuned on D3Baseball.com. We'll have plenty of coverage throughout the rest of the weekend, Memorial Day weekend here in Grand Chute, Wisconsin, as we bring you coverage of the 2013 Division III Baseball Championship.